Welcome one and all to another comparison. This is the one you've been waiting for, that you've been asking for, and we'll explain why that's not too important in a small second. First off, to kick it off, this is the Onyx Books Tab Ultra C. Wait, C, ha. And this is the Bigme Inknote Color Plus. We take no credit for this one. We did not do anything with this. We are not collaborating with Bigme on this one. We collaborated with Bigme on the previous one, and currently the Galley with Gallery 3. Before we start, we are going over to our little Goody Reader cup full of styluses, and we're going to pick something impartial and neutral to the game here. We will go with an iFlyTech pen. Reason being, this is Wacom, and we are not going to use an Onyx pen or a Bigme pen because we're going to keep things fair and use this one. Still Wacom, same tips from Wacom, graphite felt composite. Let's get going. Now everyone, if you guys want to know something, oh, this is off. If you guys want to know why we didn't put a big emphasis on this video, is because these screens are the exact same thing. If you're new to the industry, or you're new to e-readers or e-notes, the screens themselves, which I'll just grab something off camera here, looks like a piece of paper. It's a EPD, an electronic paper display, and at the bottom it has a little flex cable, a flat cable. This thing that they buy, Onyx bought the 10.3-inch Kaleido 3s, and Bigme bought the 10.3-inch Kaleido screens. If you were to rip these out, they would be the same thing. We want to emphasize that because people seem to think there's a difference. There is no difference. They're the same actual technology. Now let's get going and see how software plays an important role, because that is everything, basically, is software. We're not going to spend too much time on the actual UI and everything because, as you see at the top of the video, you can click on the video cards for the respective reviews of both of these, and the end roll will have them as well. But you will see they're not very similar anymore. They were kind of similar early on, but they did kind of go their own ways. So Onyx deals with a lot of kind of these little cards up top, and then your apps over there, and then a secondary screen with additional applications. Bigme takes a different approach and utilizes this sidebar that goes up and down, and your apps in the middle, and everything you choose will change what is going on in the middle. So if I go to notes, it's going to change notes, etc. Whereas Onyx actually navigates away from the page and goes to a dedicated area. If you drop the top downs, this is where you'll see everything. Let's turn these glow lights off. I don't think they were on though, but they were at least preset to be on. So we'll keep everything off for now, and you see you have Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and actually now that I look at these side by side, those are pretty similar, but the e-ink center logos are different, and this is what we have to look at. So for this video, for the bulk of the video, we're going to be on HD mode, everything zeroed out. You might notice this also has HD 256 because they actually allow you to toggle on image 256, which smooths over the grayscale elements, whereas this is already built into the unit. We'll go in ultra fast and stuff when we compare videos, but for now, let's get into it. We're not going to do any more UI stuff. What we are going to do is go to the gallery, and we are going to go to applications so we can start showing you the differences in some imagery. Grayscale 256 on, everything zeroed out. We're going to tap out, we're going to refresh, and see what the differences are. Looking at it for face value here, it looks like they are virtually identical. I would say the Bigme looks slightly lighter with their base preset values of contrast. You'll see the breast area of the bird is a little bit lighter, whereas they have a pre-darkened state on the Onyx. Also, I will say that the gradient is handled better by the Bigme, and you can see it right here. You'll see how smooth that green part is as it goes from dark green to a lighter green. But Onyx has these little lines. You'll see these lines that go by like that. And this is how Image 256 handles scaling when it comes to gradients. There is a very distinct staircase of lines that go by on that, but you don't see it on here. The second you change anything, they no longer have anything to do with each other, because now we're changing things. We're going to go dark enhancement. You can see how rich that is now. You see that? We can do the same thing on here. You can do dark color enhancement. looks fantastic. You can do vivid enhancement, that kind of changes the background a little bit and the light parts of it, handles the contrast. They both look so good. The color brightness, you can make it pop a little bit more, show those low lights and highlights. Now it's not a matter of the screen tech, it's a matter of how each respective company handles it with software. So these dials are virtually identical. They just call different things vivid, dark, and color, and you have vivid, dark, and color. They're basically the exact same thing, except they add little words here and there. And I believe they go up to different values. This goes up to 100, this goes up to 100. Looks to be about the same values as well. So they have emulated each other to some degree, going back and forth, because greatness recognizes greatness, basically. And you have emulation, and imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. Last picture before we get into notes, I promise. We'll get out of here, we'll refresh, everything is zeroed out, and we'll go like this. Looks pretty much the same, but I will say that across all the pictures we've seen, they look as clean as can be side by side, because again, they're using the same tech, but it does look like the Onyx is a little bit more rich. You'll see the blacks here, whereas this looks a touch lighter, but they both look the same quality. It's just that from the base preset values, there could be things in the back end beyond what you see here that affects it. So for example, sure, it says 0 as a UI element, a user interface element, but we don't know what the true values are because we can't get into the back end of it to see anything. But it is nice how they both are on the same level playing field essentially. But I must say, you know, I kind of scoffed at the image 256, but it just seems like having that is a lot better than building it into the system, because it handles gray scales a little bit better and gradients a little bit better than the Onyx. But I must say the Onyx looks a little bit more rich. Everything's zeroed out once more. We're going to click out, we're going to refresh, and we'll refresh the bottom as well right there. Everything's clean, and let's get into it. So this is the Inknote, of course. And look at these two right here. I will say the Ultra C in its base form looks better. It's richer, it's smoother. Now you might also be wondering, well, why is it that this doesn't look good? And what we found is that it actually, if you go to the E-Ink Center and you go dark enhancement and you go to about 20, then it looks identical to the Onyx. The blacks are the same. Everything looks really identical. So it almost seems like beyond the controllable, user controllable settings, they have a predetermined dark enhancement on here that the Bigme doesn't have. They truly maybe zero it out, whereas this one already starts at a plus 20 or minus 20 and works from there. So again, same tech. So really, it's just all software tweaks that these guys are doing. So in terms of the note-taking experience, they are fairly identical. If we go to a new page here, you see you have your 5 customizable pens up top. If we go to brush on both of these, it's very similar, guys. I mean, you get your line width, you get your line width here, you get all these colors, pretty much the same amount of colors. You get brush, pencil, highlighter, what have you. You also get shapes on here, shapes on here. But I will say, the Bigme has nothing on Onyx when it comes to shapes. Look at this. I'm going to make a circle. There's my circle. I made a circle. But on the Onyx, it's unparalleled. You can choose a very thick red circle with a broken line, put it on the page. You couldn't make that on this. You can grab anything you want all day long and say, okay, well, I'm going to make this dotted circle and it's going to be like that. It's never going to look the same, and it's never going to be as seamless. So Onyx has way better shapes by a long shot. But outside of that, they both have pretty much the same things. They both have text conversion, they both have a bunch of templates, and they both have add things like insert images, insert what have you. Now we have to talk about the writing feel. Wow, that's a lot of notes we took. Let's get to something where we have a new page, shall we? We have to feel the note-taking screen, because this is where it really changes things. Truthfully, the only way we're able to tell you how it feels is through the sound. There is so much more gritty feedback that reverberates through the pen on a Bigme. It has a very paper-like feel. It's not the best. It's not even top 5, I would say. But this feels like you're writing on a piece of glass. And you might say, well, you can add a screen protector on there and fix it. Well, sure, but we're talking about face value. You can do anything to these if you want. You can add iron weights to the back if you want a bigger, bulkier, heavier device, sure. But at face value, this is very slippery. It's like writing on an iPad. There's no grip almost whatsoever. There's no controllable feedback or realism at all. But it's subjective. You might like that. You might like writing on an iPad with this. The Apple Pencil, sure, that's fantastic. But if you want a paper-like feel, that's where the Bigme has it. This has a tremendous amount of grip, and it feels like paper more so than this. Also, to be honest, it is logistically better to write on the Bigme. It's a flatter device, it's not as tall as the Onyx, and it doesn't move. For example, when you're writing on here, this whole thing pivots because it's actually hindered by this massive camera bump at the back that makes it so that when you are taking notes, you will see that the entire device is moving up and down, and it is a significant move. It kind of slips and slides around on the table a little bit. Granted, they have a lot more cases for this. They have keyboard cases. They have Bluetooth page turn button remotes, although the Bigme has that too, kind of, because they have the Bigme pen, which has dictation properties, and it also has a laser pointer, so they both have their kind of peripheral pluses and minuses. We've done a lot of coverage on these two when it comes to videos. I will say that in HD mode, the Bigme is unwatchable. It just can't do anything. You could actually get by a little bit on the Onyx. It's still playing at 9 or 10 frames a second. But when it comes to ultra fast mode, they look identical. And again, the only reason this is darker because it has a bigger preset value of contrast, and as you can see here, we've zeroed everything out, so it does seem like these are pretty much exactly the same frame rate on both of these when it comes to video in its extreme or ultra fast mode. It's almost like these guys are copying each other, honestly. We don't know who's copying who. Onyx has been around longer, but Bigme has been dabbling in color significantly longer than Onyx has. They've been on 10.3 inches since 2020. They have a ton of color experience through 3 generations of color. Onyx has traditionally only dealt in small color devices like the Poke 2 6-inch, the Nova Air C 7.8, etc. So looking at these, they're pretty much the glow lights are identical as well. I mean, it's just they're the same. One's just above the other when it comes to the temperature and the warm light, but the colds are virtually identical. If we turn on the warms, it looks virtually identical. This maybe has a touch more orange in it, whereas this is a little bit more pale, but it's really, we're splitting hairs here. I mean, you can't find two manufacturers in both the device lineups, the quality, the availability, the support, and the overall functionality than Bigme and Onyx. These guys are head-to-head, completely honest across the board. They both have basically every screen size available, minus Bigme doesn't have 6 inches or monitors, but they most certainly do have everything between 7 and 13.3, except for a color 13.3, which Onyx doesn't even have either. But in terms of the glow light, there's nothing going on here, guys. They're both kind of far enough away from the screen, close enough to the screen where we don't see any spillage or leakage or anything like that. They're both very high quality. The warm light works. They're the same. We completely understand. You guys are going to say, why didn't you show this? Why didn't you show that? There's too much here. These two units represent the absolute zenith, the absolute top of their class of what they can do. They have Google Play. You don't even need to use anything on board like the X Reader or the Neo Reader. You just use Amazon. You just use Barnes & Noble. You just use Kobo Rakuten. You can use anything you want. These are so huge in functionality, in quality, in build, in support, in updates. It's just too much. It really is. And you know, there is a case for, like you guys say in the comments, a distraction-free device, which is honestly an excuse for not putting a lot of features, but there is a lot to unpack here. They're fairly easy to grasp. I mean, everything's pretty straightforward. It's Office, it's tasks, it's storage. This one's right in the middle. This one doesn't have any lines, but words, but you understand what it means, settings and storage and stuff like that. So there's no massive learning curves here, and you can do everything under the sun. These guys are top of the clock. If you guys want to see the individual review videos, check the end roll at the end. The end roll will show the review of this. It will show the review of this. And again, if you guys are scrubbing through the video, there's no differences in the screen tech. It's just the software that each of these guys do to implement changes along the way, but they're identical devices, and based off of the build qualities, the way that they kind of handle everything, the speed modes, the e-ink centers, they couldn't be more similar, honestly. So you can't go wrong grabbing either one of these. If you want an extra camera, this is the one to go. If you want a little bit more of a better build quality, this is the one to go. If you want something that has a better writing feel, this is the way to go. If you want someone that has been dabbling in a lot of e-notes for a very long time, this is the way to go. They're so similar. They're perfect for anybody, and we equally love them both. For GoodyReader.com, this is Peter.